This week on The Big Show, we lost one of the most influential comics of my lifetime when Paul Mooney died earlier this week. We'll discuss his tremendous impact and celebrate his legacy. Plus, Amazon is currently negotiating with MGM to acquire the legendary catalog of this studio. How will this change the landscape of the streaming wars? We'll have all that and more on episode 456 of Keeping It Real with Film Gordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of The Big Show, Keeping It Real with Film Gordon. I am Tim Gordon, joined by my co-host, Charles Kirkland Jr. Charles, what's going on, my brother?
Man, it's 93 degrees in the city today. Let's get going.
Wow, and Wilson Morales joins us from blackfilmandtv.com, who's already told us it is beautiful in New York, and he wants to hit those streets, man, so we're going to jump right into it. Let me just start off with Paul Mooney, man, because I was working this week, and I was someplace, and somebody hit me up and told me what had happened, and I had a bunch of different feelings around this because I'm not sure if I had shared with the audience. You guys know that I've both worked in radio for 12 years and spent a lot of time around Paul Mooney, man, because he would come to DC often and stop by the radio station I was working at, Howard University Radio at WHUR. So I got a chance to spend a lot of time around Paul Mooney, man. And let me just basically, before I even get to that, just tell people who are not familiar with Paul Mooney who he was. This brother, man, his real name was Paul Gladney. His stage name, of course, was Paul Mooney. He was a comedian, stand-up comedian, or a writer, social critic, and actor. He's probably known for my generation as being the person who wrote comedy for Richard Pryor, who's the greatest stand-up comedian of all time. He also collaborated with Red Fox, Eddie Murphy, and most recently, Dave Chappelle. Mooney was known for his acting, playing Sam Cooke in the Buddy Holly Story. He was Junebug in Bamboozled with Spike Lee, and of course, Negro Damas on the Chappelle Show. And as I said, he was a writer for shows like Sanford and Son, In Living Color, and of course, on the Chappelle Show. Paul Mooney, man, I'm not sure if Wilson ever got a chance to see him do his stand-up live. Mooney was fearless, bro. Mooney was fearless. And it was funny because I just listened to a dedication from comedian Pierre, who co-starred along with Bill Bellamy and How to Be a Player. And he talked about Mooney being his mentor. I just know, not just on stage, but privately, Mooney was fearless, man. Mooney would say things, man, probably a lot of it about white people that Black folks probably thought about, but maybe never had the courage to articulate. And again, I go back to this, man. When I wrote it, I wrote my obit on social media, on Facebook. I wrote, he was controversial, man. He was very honest with his comedy, man. Mooney was a brilliant, brilliant comedy writer, man. I mean, probably his most notable sketch that he wrote for Richard Pryor, and again, this is for Wilson, because Wilson didn't really mess with Mooney like that, is he wrote Just Us, which was a bit that Pryor did back in the 70s, man, where he said, it's not just about justice, it's just us, which was a play on words, which at the time, man, was huge, huge. As I said, man, lots of moments with this guy, man, at the DC Improv, at the radio station. He just didn't cut on white folk on stage. If you were around and he had fun with you too, you just had to stand there and take it, because what you gonna do? Trade insult with Paul Mooney? Just go, Paul, man, all right, man, you got me, Paul. All right, man. So that's all you had when Paul was around, bro. But he was a funny man, bro. So Charles, since I know, because I'm giving Wilson some time to put some thoughts together, because what do you have about Paul Mooney? What do you remember from his stand-up? I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet him or spend time around him like I did. I actually, before I get to you, one of the things that I thought about, and then I erased it out of my mind within like minutes, is I was like, we should ask Paul Mooney to host the Black Real Awards. And then I went, Nah, because I can't control what Paul's gonna say. You're not gonna put me out there to alienate my sponsors, man. No. But go ahead.
Man, yeah. I've seen him live. Yes, I've never met him personally, been introduced to him, but I've met him. You know, the funniest thing to me was my children know him from the Chappelle Show, and so he had this thing on there where he was Negro Damas. You mentioned it before, and this one he ad-libbed that segment that he would do on Chappelle Show. It wasn't scripted or anything. He ad-libbed it. So they would toss him a question and he would just ad-lib the answer. And I remember they said, why do white people like Wayne Brady? And he said, because Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumbel look like Malcolm X.
Yes, sir.
The funny, and they ran with that joke. Wayne Brady even came on the show later on down the line, following up on Paul Mooney. I mean, one of the most influential, outstanding, unrelenting, unapologetic. I mean, he was our Don Rickles to the next level. I mean, he just kept it real, and man, to see him outlast all his contemporaries. You talked about Richard Pryor. You talked about Red Fox. I mean, he outlived them all. He's an icon. He is an icon as far as Black comedy goes. Inspired generations of comedians and worked with generations of comedians. I mean, amazing talent that we lost this week.
Man, it's funny. I just remembered somebody invited me to come on the show and talk about it. I completely forgot, man. I was doing some stuff yesterday. But before I get to Wilson, I just want to remind people one more time, and if you don't believe me, you can go on YouTube and look this up. Back in 1977, they had the Richard Pryor Show. It lasted 4 episodes on NBC, and I remember watching this, right? And Mooney, of course, was the head writer on this show. Do you know who was the writing cast of the Richard Pryor Show? Let me read to you who worked under Paul Mooney. He gave all these young comics a break, and they were writers on the Richard Pryor Show. This comedian, you might have heard of him, named Robin Williams, was a writer on the Richard Pryor Show. Sandra Bernhardt, Marsha Warfield, who later on went and did Night Court. John Witherspoon, the late John Witherspoon, and Tim Reed all got their breaks working under Paul Mooney in the Richard Pryor Show, which lasted 4 episodes. And then the last episode, there is a roast that they do. I got that too. There is a roast that they did of Richard Pryor, which is hilarious because each one of the writers took shots at Richard Pryor for like 30 to 40 minutes. Richard Pryor got up when they were done and laid each and every one of them out. And he really lays Paul Mooney. So if you get a chance, go on YouTube and look for the Richard Pryor roast. Funny. Wilson Morales, you've had time to go get your Richard Pryor box set. I don't know.
It's funny. You say you only lasted 4 episodes. It's got 3 discs in here. It's like,
okay, I'm telling you, there's 4 episodes. Now, what you may have in there, because I have something, and it's funny. I wish I could run if Wilson wants to play the show me your game. I worked in radio when they came out with a box set of all of Richard Pryor's albums, man. So I have all of his albums. Bicentennial, you know what? That you know what is crazy.
Let me get my thing in.
Well, go ahead, man.
You guys can talk about Paul Mooney because you guys are like 20 years older than me. So it's like,
wow.
So I'm like, you talk about 1970. You're talking about 1977. I'm like, yo, I wasn't even 10 at that point. It was like, you go there, I'm like, all right, game over. You say, I'm like, it was like, dude from Aliens, game over. You say, like, but anyway, I actually did go see Paul Mooney at one point, not knowing who really he was. I remember going with a friend of mine to the comedy place that's in New York City, like around the Broadway area, the Comedy Store, I want to say. I could be wrong if it's not called the Comedy Store. And I remember like how controversial he was, to the point that by the time social media came in play and the internet, you could only see him live because, like, as you said, nobody could trust him on the air. And obviously with the stuff that he says, no, you don't want to lose sponsors on your site, on your platform, on your program. So he was one of those guys that stayed true to his game, and you'd have to see him in person in order to get him. And he continued to do that over and over again. You know, people would ask him to host, you know, and it was always like, oh, we get him to host, you want to show up, because you're never going to see that unless somebody's taping it illegally at one of his performances. You know, so at the end of the day, when he passed away and you see all the sentiments on social media, that's because people got to see him, you know, do it during, he was always in his prime. He, you know, never let up. So, you know, the fact that, you know, you say Richard Pryor is like, oh, you know, Richard Pryor's been dead, you know, now what, more than 15 years now, you know? And so like, and the fact that he wrote for him way back when, you know, it's like, you've got to be old enough to remember that. And sometimes you got to give kudos to these people while they're still, you know, now when they're still living. Because, you know, who's today's hottest genius, you know, to, I wouldn't say at the level of Paul Mooney, because everybody's different. Think about it, like we're getting, Kevin Hart's the biggest comedian, Black comedian now, you know, and he's not as risque as Paul Mooney was. You know, when you think about like the Red Fox and the Andy Rick, you know, Rickles and all of those, you don't get them like that. You even go back to Jerry Seinfeld. They, you know, everybody's more conservative now with the jokes because, you know, you just can't make fun of everybody. You never know who's in the audience and like, oh, you're now making fun of married couples. What's wrong with that? You're like, ooh, you know, so it's like a fine line now for comedians as far as what used to be funny is no longer funny. But, you know, God rest his soul, you know, he lived to his 70s, you know, and like I said, people passed away a long time ago, but, you know, sometimes you got to recognize these guys even in passing.
Man, I forgot to say, go ahead.
What's funny then is still funny now. It's just that you can't laugh at it.
Right. We got cancel culture now, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that all these guys said, man, back in the day that you can't get away with now. But I wanted to add before we got away from Mooney that we talk about him on the Chappelle show doing Negro Damas. He also wrote, because he was a head writer for In Living Color as well. Yeah. He inspired the Damon Wayans clown character, Homie Don't Play That. Yeah. That's Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney wrote that too. So Mooney, man, I'm talking about as a writer. And it's funny because I was telling you, I was watching Pierre, and Pierre was talking about the thing that was unique about Mooney. A lot of comedians write bits, right? And you hear Chappelle tell a story one time that a comedian stole his bit. You know, he let him borrow it when he was young, and the comedian wouldn't give it back. Mooney would write you a bit. I mean, it wasn't all about what he could deliver. He was a writer extraordinaire who wrote for so many different people. So this brother had a heart attack at the age of 79, died in Oakland this week. I hadn't seen Paul since I left radio probably about 15 years ago, man. Miss him already. Miss that I won't have another opportunity to sit around with him and let him hold court and tell me stories that will make me laugh. So God rest his soul, man. Good brother, man. Funny, but tortured, like most geniuses are. We did a show earlier this week. We talked about Marvin Gaye being tortured, man. Great artist, man, tortured. Mooney was another one of those guys, man. So him and Richard Pryor and Red Fox and all those guys are reunited up in the big comedy room in the sky telling jokes. We'll wait for my turn to get there to check it out. I don't need to see it now, but I can just imagine it's going down, man. So rest in peace to Paul Mooney. So Wilson Morales, we have broken protocol because normally we let you start off with what's going on in entertainment, man. And we'll let you be the bridge today between this and the next topic that we have. So what's going on, bro? Because I saw you out there doing what you do every week, man. Now Wilson is adding in person back to his game. You know, I'm live at this event. I'm live at this event.
All right. You know, well, you know, obviously in the movie news, every week or every 2-3 days, we're seeing new casting notices for Knives Out, the sequel, which is going to be played on Netflix instead of Lionsgate, who released it in theaters. More recently, I think we got Leslie Odom, who's now getting a boatload of offers now since his nomination. You know, we're going to see a lot more of him on a big screen. You also had Janelle Monáe, who was added recently. And then you also, you know, they just released an official trailer for Respect, the Aretha Franklin film. So that's starting to gear up in
Which
August.
I still haven't seen this trailer yet. Is it any good?
Well, it's a biopic, so like.
No, but I'm talking about, do you get a sense from watching the trailer that like, oh man, it's gonna either really be good or
when it was, remember, they had a teaser trailer a while back, obviously when they thought it was gonna be released last year, and that got a lot of people going because initially it was supposed to be released before the Genius Aretha series that that recently aired. Now that people have seen that, now here comes Jennifer. So it's a big screen treatment. So let's see where it's gonna go. And the question is, how much is going to be explored in a 2-hour movie that you probably already got a sense in I think it was 8-hour
miniseries. 8 hours.
So it's a matter of how that's going to play. While the TV version offered the best of TV actors, I wouldn't call them TV actors. You got an Oscar winner in Jennifer Hudson. You got an Oscar winner in Forrest Whitaker. You got a Grammy winner, an Oscar nominee in Mary J. Blige. So we'll see how that plays out. Summer is coming upon us. A lot more movies are now, studios are now saying you gotta go to the theaters to start, seeing these movies. We got to bring the theater back. I think this weekend the Fast 9 is opening overseas and already they're starting to make gangbuster numbers, not like in the way it did before.
Oh yeah, it is 160 million. Oh yeah.
But let me say this real quick, because Wilson is a real nice guy. He's not going to answer the question that you asked. Is the trailer any good? Not really.
But here's the thing: you can't. You need to have an interest in there right away, because even look at. I'm going to use Tim. He wasn't feeling the trailer for Judas and the Black Messiah, and then he saw the movie, and then all of a sudden he did a 360. So like
did a 180, smarty.
Say, nah, he did a 360. Say, he did a 360. Say, he was like, I like it. I don't like it. I like it. Say, so
no, like, I didn't. We're not gonna re-legislate that, but he's right. I mean, but my point is that I still haven't watched it, so I was trying to get a sense from somebody who I respect to find out whether or not this is a story that, I mean, because it's already going to be difficult, right? You're Wilson. You're absolutely right. We just had 8 hours about several months ago, a couple of months ago, of Aretha Franklin's story, and now you're doing a 2-hour movie. Of course, the 2-hour movie has to be a lot more focused than what they did with the series. So I'm just trying to get a sense, and I'll go and check it out. I might check it out.
And they have to have the songs. When you're gonna, the series didn't include a lot of well-known songs, so the expectation is that the movie will. Somebody's got the rights to the song, so like put it out there. So we'll see. Like I said, you have a lot of stuff that just aired. Army of the Dead is now airing on Netflix after appearing in theaters last week. So people are seeing that big action film through Zack Snyder in there. So you're starting to get promotions for the Tribeca Film Festival. They're going to be the first festival to go full swing in person. In the Heights, it's just got like officially reviewed and people are loving it. And that's going to be the opening night film for the festival. There's a lot going. It's like, especially in New York where summer's coming up, a lot more restrictions have been lifted. People can walk around maskless. So it's a matter of getting back into form. People are starting to do premieres. They just had a premiere for Cruella in LA. The movie is getting good reviews. That's coming out pretty soon. It's over 2 hours, so like, let's get, it's back in there. So people want to just still feel safe in the theaters, out there. Fast 9, like as we mentioned, about to, come at you. I get to see it this week coming up. They had a trailer for Dear Evan Hansen, another musical that's going to come out in the summer. Actually, no, it's going to come out in September, right around the same time Broadway's coming back to the theater. So Dear Evan Hansen is an award-winning musical, and we're going to get the theatrical version. So you have In the Heights, Dear Evan Hansen, and then obviously towards the end of the year, you're going to get Tick, Tick, Boom and West Side Story. So there's going to be plenty of reasons for people to get back on the screen to see it. There'll be some people who still want to see things at home, like they don't feel safe, they haven't been vaccinated, who knows? But hey, things are getting back into full swing. So, Cabin Fever is almost over for a lot of people. Like, oh, they have a reason to come out. Not the same in New York. You need a reason. There's no big events for you to come out. But as long as the summer's out there, you can probably go out to a picnic or whatever.
All right, so let me answer my own question because I just looked at the trailer because I knew Wilson was going to extend this out. So, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the teaser trailer. It's a minute and 30 seconds. I mean, I get it. I mean, you've seen a lot of, we've gone over a lot of that. I think it's going to be a lot showier because it reminds me of like kind of watching Ray. Who is Mary J. Blige supposed to be playing in this film? Anybody?
Yes, and it's somebody big. I can't think right away.
I think it's cool to see Mary J. Blige and Jennifer Hudson together on screen. I mean, that's kind of could be a draw.
And Jennifer wrote a song for the movie, so MGM is going to go the full Oscar campaign for this. They're going to have to go the extra mile because it's an August release. So it's sort of like, my personal opinion is that Jennifer Hudson would have to give a Daniel Day-Lewis Lincoln performance to knock everybody out of the box and say, I'm winning it.
Because that's tough. That's tough, man.
It's an August release. It's an August release. And so it's a long time away from, you'll get to talk, you'll be in the front runner, and that's way before you start seeing movies that's going to play in Toronto or later in the year. Yeah. And so I think, she may get a nomination, but can she win it outright? And so she could be in line for a Best Actress nomination. She could be in line for Best Song, which is what's recently happened with Leslie Odom Jr., what recently happened with Mary J. Blige, with Lady Gaga. So they're getting actor and song nominations. The question is, can she win both? Can she win one? And as we saw earlier this year, you had two Blacks nominated for Best Actress and still didn't win. So Jennifer would have to be unstoppable as she was in Dreamgirls to knock everybody out the box so early and say, I don't care who else is coming out, because look what.
Yeah, so I agree with you, man. That's tough. But go ahead, Charles.
I think the whole point is, remember now, Jennifer Hudson is a winner. She's done this before, so it's not like Andra Day where
that could work against her, that she's already won before. So we don't know who else could be in the same category that, you may get people say, and granted, it's the Best Actress category, so something totally different. But remember, so was Viola, So that, some people could say, well, she's never won Best Actress. Or some people, she's already won one, whereas whoever else is in the category may be deemed ready. Like if you get Glenn Close in there and they're like, okay, this is Glenn Close's 9th nomination. You may feel sympathy. I'm like, let me give it to Glenn. We just can't have her be Susan Lucci of the Oscars. You never know how politics play out.
All right, and Mary J. Blige is playing Dinah Washington in the movie.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, all right. So is that it, Wilson, for this week?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm glad that was the last film that we talked about because, of course, that's an MGM release. And so a couple of things. We're getting ready to talk about the Amazon deal with MGM. So, Wilson, your timing is perfect. But for people at home, what you've got to understand about what we just talked about as it relates to Jennifer Hudson's chances, it has nothing to do with her ability of what she's going to do. It's all about the timing, right? And with this being an August release, and to Wilson's point, since this is now, we're going back to a normal film year. So this is like a film that's released in the 8th month of the year. And there are 3 more months or 3.5 more months left after this one, where there'll be films that'll be coming out of, as you said, major festivals like Toronto, Telluride, Cannes will have some stuff earlier that may be considered. And then you also got to remember that last year was a really weird year in film. So a lot of films that were supposed to be released last year were pushed back to this year. So you're going to have a glut of major studio releases that are going to be coming out between the time that Respect drops in August or mid-August to the end of the year. So Jennifer Hudson is a former Oscar winner. And in order to run an Oscar campaign, it's millions of dollars. It is not cheap. And I don't have a number, but Wilson probably could speculate or give you a range. It's a lot of money to launch a campaign. They're in-person events. They fly us around. Well, when I say fly us around, they fly critics around. They're meet and greets. They're going to show the film a gang of times to people in order to try to generate that interest later in the year. Wilson, did you have anything to add on that before I moved on?
Yeah, like obviously, the assumption is just not going to be just Jennifer in the running. You know, when you have an Oscar winner like Forrest Whitaker playing Jennifer's father, you're going to mount a campaign for him. And if there's anybody else in a good supporting role, as well as the film. So like I said, there's a lot of money that goes into the market. It's almost like the presidential race where, you know, you need to keep winning primaries in order to gain support and have to get more people to back you with money for your campaign. Once your money runs out, then you're out because you don't have money to campaign anymore. You know, which is always the case with these, you know, when it comes to films. You know, that's why you don't see a lot of small films get the recognition because they don't have the money to place in ads, in magazines, or on certain websites to promote these people.
Right. All right. So moving on to our next topic, man. And this one hit me, which is why I said we definitely got to talk about this. The news dropped, I guess, about a week or so ago, because it's not been a secret that for the last year or so that MGM, one of the legendary studios, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, is up for sale right now. And I think that when they were initially put up, everybody estimated the cost between $5 to $6 billion to acquire MGM. And Amazon was like, you know what, we're going to blow all these offers out the water. And they offered $9 billion for MGM. And I remember when I first—
Billion or billion?
Billion. I said $9 billion for MGM. And the first thing I thought of is I said, MGM, isn't that James Bond's home? And I looked it up and I said, I'm right. It is James Bond's home. So I was just saying, we were talking about this before we went on air. There are two ways to go about building in this streaming universe, right? We've watched Netflix and we've talked about it ad nauseum that Netflix has this subscription service where they have 200 million people paying $14 to $15 a month. So Netflix is making money hand over fist, which is why they're able to put $8 to $9 billion into programming, probably annually or biannually, that they're just creating their own programming. On the other side, across the street, you got Disney, that is a legendary studio that has its own set of classics. And then they go out and acquire Lucasfilm. So they have access to all the Star Wars properties. You go out and you acquire Marvel and you have access to that entire universe of characters that they create. You go out and you buy Pixar, and then you have this huge kind of like mammoth kind of animation studio, right? So Disney is doing the same thing. They have a combination of their own projects that they've created over time, their classic stuff, along with stuff they've acquired, right? So now Amazon is sitting there, right? And Amazon is going, you know, we've got enough money. You know, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men on the planet. You know, we can put money out there. But what Amazon has been doing is Amazon has been going to places like Sundance and Cannes and Tribeca, and they've been acquiring films and now they've just started recently getting out there trying to produce their own project or their own programming. So now you look at MGM that's out there, and I told this to Charles before we got on the air. I said, I don't know why Netflix didn't do this. You just buy MGM, and then at that point, it becomes a two-company race in the universe. It would be Disney and it would be Netflix if they had MGM. Now, what is MGM? What does MGM possess for people at home who don't know? MGM, of course, we talk about as the home of James Bond. They've also done the Rocky franchise, the Hobbit franchise, Pink Panther, Candyman, RoboCop. Recently, they've got The Handmaid's Tale and Stargate. They've got 4,000 movies, classic movies in their library, and over 17,000 television shows. If Amazon is able to pull this off, Wilson, I'm gonna start with you. To me, it puts them right up there with Disney when it comes to programming, that they are able to leverage all of that. The only catch in this right now is that the producers, the Broccoli family, that are the producers of the Bond franchise, have to sign off on it, because if they can't get that signature, this deal's not going to fly, because they've got unprecedented control that they can pick the actor that plays Bond. They pick the marketing. The movies must play in theaters. They won't allow them to be streamed directly on Amazon. So there are lots of stipulations that family has and has lorded this franchise, has kind of safeguarded it for 50 years. So Wilson, to my first question to you about this, and the reason why I'm so passionate, because this is our business. To me, this puts them almost at a level with Disney. If they're able to get MGM with the assets that they currently have, I think it puts Netflix in the number 3 hole if MGM is able to be acquired by Amazon. Do you agree or disagree?
Not really, only because both Amazon and Netflix do not have a hold in theaters. And Disney does. Disney knows, like, that's why Disney has a base for TV shows. What we've seen with WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they know they've got Marvel and Pixar films that can go to theaters and make gangbuster numbers. You know, that's why they waited patiently for the pandemic to start dying down a bit, and they're going to release Black Widow in the theaters. You know, or because they know they can make money out of it. Even though I think they made an announcement that Black Widow will also appear on Disney Plus. Netflix, for the most part, they make no money coming in theaters. You know, they release their films in theaters, nobody goes to see it because the window is, I'm not gonna pay $15 to see a movie when I know I can wait a week to see it at home. You know, it's like I'm not that thirsty, to give up money like that. Amazon, and this is where the broccolis come in. So initially, James Bond was supposed to be in theaters last year. The last James Bond film, if I'm right, grossed nearly $1 billion, if not over. And so they know that's a gangbuster pre-pandemic that was going to make money. It's James Bond 25. It's Daniel Craig's last film as Bond. And so the hope was that if there was no pandemic, it was going to come out, make money, use whatever proceeds they have from there, because they don't have a lot of movies released in theaters, use whatever proceeds what they have from there to supplement whatever money they're going to use for Respect. Respect is coming out early. So the question is, it's like, for whatever money MGM has now, without James Bond, it's like, okay, so if they can get a deal with Amazon, they know they have that cash infusion to go all out, and they're going to need money when James Bond comes out, because that is a franchise, the 25th milestone. You got to go all out, the cars in James Bond, the locations in James Bond, all sorts of ways to market that, and so they're going to need the cash infusion, which is why they're trying to make it. Now, the Broccolis obviously have done successfully well, and they're like J.K. Rowling, who controls the Harry Potter. As far as I want it straight from the book, I have a hand in the casting, so the Broccolis are like, if we're going to, unless you can give us the same deal and to say, we don't want it streamed because, this is our cash cow. We've done well with it. People are going to go to the movie theaters. We want worldwide domination in the way at the box office. We don't want this streaming on Amazon because we're going to lose half its audience. There are people who do not want to go to theaters, and we're like, no. By the time we hit November, it's like, you're either going to theaters to see it or not, especially since it was made pre-pandemic. So, you're using top-of-the-line photography, cinematography, action sequences, the car. You don't do this for streaming. Netflix has the money for that, but nah. At the end of the day, for all the Netflix does, you don't see articles on the films that Netflix spends a lot of money on. Like the Ryan Reynolds movie that came out a couple of years ago.
Six Underground.
That was a lot in that movie in terms of location, the action sequences, the cars that they use. But you didn't see any stories because it wasn't like, when you play on Netflix, it'll get talked about that same week and then it'll die out the next week because they got a gang load of other films and series coming up. Whereas if in a theater, you have the luxury that if you become number one at the box office, it's in every paper doing a box office recap. So you're getting visibility there on TV as well. People can talk about it at the water cooler. Yo, what'd you do over the weekend? I went to go see that movie. They wanted to check it out. Summer reasons.
Wait a minute, Wilson, but let me jump in for a second because I think that you're missing my original point. My original point was, and I guess I didn't articulate this correctly, so I'm gonna let you finish and then go to Charles. Is they're not only acquiring the library, the 4,000 films and the 17,000 17,000 shows, they're also acquiring the studio. The studio is 97 years old, and they've got a list of upcoming projects that are going to play in theaters. So you're not just buying a library, you're buying a film studio. Think about if you're buying Paramount, if you're buying DreamWorks, you're buying a full-fledged studio. So I think Amazon's business model, to a certain degree, may change because they're films that are going to be played in theaters, and then you can actually leverage those and play them on your streaming platform. That's why I said that to me, it was a big story because I'm like, you're not just buying the library, you're buying a major studio that's almost 100 years old and has a reputation. MGM already has a team of how they roll films out for theatrical release. Amazon can step immediately into the breach and
but here's the
their reputation in this market.
Fox had the same deal with Disney, and then more recently, you just heard about people from Fox being let go because too many people.
Yeah, but Wilson is different. Disney was already an established studio. Fox was established. It was redundancy. Amazon doesn't have a studio. Amazon is a streaming service that now is buying legitimacy. Or here's a better example. When Fox merged with Disney, right? We live here in DC, right? You had a Motion Picture Association. I remember a conversation I heard that, oh man, there's an open seat in the MPAA. Fox went out of business. Netflix stepped in and took Fox's spot, right? As a member of the MPA. MGM is a member of the MPAA. If MGM gets sold to Amazon, guess who now has a seat at the Motion Picture Association and will be lobbying Amazon? It's a huge deal that I don't think people are seeing it.
I'm thinking about Without Remorse. It came, it kind of went, you know.
Yeah, but again, Wilson, if that was in a studio and at a different time, that's a different situation.
The whole difference is you go from buying movies to making movies.
To making movies and having a studio. That's what I'm saying.
And in the past, Amazon has acquired movies, but now they are a major player in making these films.
Well, I guess the Broccoli's will have to dictate that. I guess, you know, if the Broccoli's attest to that, they're going to have to be the leaders in saying, oh, if we sign off on this, they're going to be the speakers for every MGM producer or film that they've ever had to say, listen, somebody's got to step up and tell Amazon, we want our joint in theaters only.
I disagree. Nobody else has the power that the Broccoli's do over there.
They sure enough don't.
And so, yes, Amazon will make whatever concessions they need to be able to get their hands on that Bond franchise, but that applies to just them.
No, but I think, but Charles, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think both of you guys are right where I'm at. What I'm saying is that Amazon has been doing a streaming service sort of a business. I clearly see them going to more of a studio model and then having their streaming service as a place where they can leverage all of MGM's library, but these upcoming films, which are theatrical releases, will play in the theater under the new Amazon MGM banner if this deal is able to go through.
But here's also the thing you forget, like, you know, what we're not factoring in, and I don't know too deep into the business, is the after theater model in terms of, like, you know, people expect much to come from, you know, the DVDs, the franchise, and, you know, through the Bond franchises, they made a gangbusters. I know people who collect these stuff, you know, they go out of their way. Like, and some people don't want it on streaming channels. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to go to Amazon to see all 25. It's like, I got the DVDs right in front of me, you know, because we are Americans. And so we have a lot of advantages to us. No, I'm saying, like, I was recently out of the country, and you'd be surprised about what they don't have access to, you know? So, like, there are some things that don't get played. You can get played on, here in America, because we have access to Netflix and all that, you go to other countries, it's like, oh, it's prohibited. It's not there yet, and things like that. We're like, so you don't know what the model is for television and for deals, because when people make these movies, there's a lot of residuals, that people sign in terms of like, oh, I'll do this for short, but I want something on the payback, like, in case this movie makes money. And when you don't make, but when you go to TV, it's like, oh no, you got to pay these people up front because these people are expecting something to come in. Like I know when when Hulu picked up Billie Holiday, a lot of contracts had to be restructured because it was intended to go to the theaters. And then when you're putting it on streaming, now it's a question of what can you air on the streaming with the music rights and everything else. Like even I don't know if Tim's done this before, when you're trying to air a movie on a streaming channel or you want to play a movie. It's one thing if you call the studios, oh, I want to play a 1993 movie as part of the anniversary in a theater. Right. In a theater. And they'll just like, okay, here's the print and we'll guard it. Boom, it's one theater. I want to play it on, my platform. Now, there's the fear that anybody can copy that movie, online, and so there's a lot of things that get played in place, how, in terms of the contract and the music rights and all of that stuff. Like there are plenty of times I did that maybe a year or two ago, and we played a movie, and within that movie, a snippet of a song was played, and we did it on Facebook Live, and I'm getting flagged from Facebook saying, you just aired 30 seconds of this music. Yep. I never paid attention. You hear it in the background. It's in the back scene. Yes, and it's sir. Like that music is owned by Warner Brothers Music. And now you have to send an email saying I have permission on all this stuff. There's a lot of rights, same thing like YouTube, like where, copyright infringements. There's a lot of those things. When you're doing it in a theater, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, so let me jump in and answer that one for you, because you're absolutely right. And we deal with that here, which is why there's no music played at any point on this show, because we've been flagged a bunch of times for shows we did in the past. But let me give you a little more context, man, about why this is significant, Wilson. If you go back and study the history of Hollywood, right? The oldest studio is Warner Brothers, right? From 1923. The second oldest studio is MGM. MGM was formed in 1924, right? So MGM has a century almost of content. And to answer your question about thinking about from Amazon, don't picture Amazon now as Amazon Prime exists, right? And you talk about without remorse and what Amazon has done. They're trying to get into the space in a major way. And as I told Charles, the property is valued at $5.5 million, between $5 to $6 billion. Amazon is willing to pay $9 billion because to them, $9 billion is a lot of money, but they got it. And if you get the company, you make the concessions to the Broccolis because you'll go, we're cool with being in theaters because we plan on putting all of the new content in theaters, and we plan on being a studio, stepping into what MGM is already doing, and then hiring those people and bringing them over and making them Amazon. So for Amazon, it's a win-win because those movies play in the theater. They can shorten the window 30, 45 days, whatever the window is, or whatever agreement is reached through the Motion Picture Association. Those movies go straight to Amazon, nobody else. So they have the money coming in from the theaters. They got the money coming in on the back end. The other thing is, Wilson, is they get to leverage all that programming that comes from MGM that now suddenly shows up on Amazon, which means that if Netflix has deals, because we saw this happen a couple of years ago when Disney Plus opened up, when Disney went to Netflix and pulled all their programming off of Netflix. Remember that? Which is why Netflix was like, we're going to spend $8 to $9 billion and create our own programming. So right now, if you look across different channels, TNT, other streaming services, they're showing a lot of MGM product. I'm going to tell you now, if Amazon is able to acquire that, those deals whatever the end of those deals may be, I don't know, a year, 6 months, 2 years, whatever. All that stuff is going to end up migrating over to Amazon, and it will be the home of it. Amazon will make money with movies in theaters that they'll market. They'll have those movies come to their streaming service. Nobody else will be allowed to play any of that stuff. Amazon will make out, and they see that, which is why they're willing to pay $3 to $4 billion above cost to get this studio, because this is a prime piece that if somebody gets it, it's game over. That's why I said for Netflix, if Amazon is able to close this deal, and as you said, the key is the Broccoli family that controls the Bond franchise. If they're able to close this deal, no disrespect to Netflix, because I love Netflix, but you better find a studio, man, because this is what the world is turning into right now. Disney has shown us the model. Amazon has seen what Disney is doing. Netflix needs to be looking around. If there's a studio out there that's looking to sell, you need to acquire content. It's good to have content, but you got to have something else to leverage that is an established library of classic hits.
Yeah, so you might as well start looking around like, okay, let me go get this MGM DVD because
you better hurry up, bro.
Like, around, it's like, oh, think about it. At the end of the day, it's like Netflix doesn't play any of these old movies. No, does Disney. So you only
Disney
got.
does. Disney has their classics that they have on Disney Plus.
Yeah, but not like
all Disney
releases. When you look at TNT and those old classics, 1947, 1949, 1951, you go to TNT to find these movies, like, anything that has like Fred McMurray and, any of these older actors. Seriously, it's like, otherwise they're going to be forgotten, because they're going to be in the middle of Amazon's $1 billion collection, like think about it now. You look at HBO and what they're doing with Warner Media, and which they have some of the TNT classics part of their library, so you watch that stuff there. Once it acquires, now granted, we're speaking ahead of ourselves. We don't know what's going on. It's just talk for now to see what happens. The only reason we're talking about it is because Amazon's the only one with the capital. Like Netflix is like, we're in the race. We're already leveraged up, So it's like,
I think it's a mistake on Netflix's part.
No,
and the whole purpose.
I got to step in here because I hear Wilson Morales talking about DVD sales, and he sounds like he talks about us being older than him. He sounds like an old curmudgeon.
Because I'm not even tripping on DVD sales right now.
Because this is not the stuff that people are looking forward to in the future. Everything is
streaming. Everything's streaming. Everything is streaming now.
It's cable. So when the other day we're watching the basketball playoffs or whatever, and TNT puts up an ad that they're showing Black Panther on TNT. I said, good God, how much money did TNT have to pay Disney to play that movie just one time? And that's where the money is. All these services, Turner Classic Movies, TCM, AMC, all these people that are going to have to start paying Amazon money to play all these movies.
Bingo. That's what I'm trying to tell Wilson. And that's what you're not getting. If you leverage and own that library, anytime somebody wants one of those and when we talk about titles, when you're talking about Rocky, people want to play, and they now own Creed. Oh my God, man!
Ben Hur, the Hobbits.
The licensing fees are going to be the licensing fee is tremendous. That's the key, licensing fee, which is why when you look at networks and pilots and movies, as far as what can we pay out when they have their own product, like you say, Netflix is creating their own stuff because they don't have to pay so much for licensing. That's why they let go of the Friends, and everybody's taking back. They're like, oh no, we don't want to pay an astronomical amount for the Friends licensing fee. Especially when Peacock was like, it's our product. Like we're gonna air it on our show. So that is the key, licensing fee. So like, and then everybody else is like, okay, I want to make out of it. So that's all I can say.
So Wilson, also remember. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
Legitimacy and exclusivity. That's what is coming from this deal. Amazon paid $13 billion, almost $14 billion for Whole Foods. Amazon deal is a bargain to them, and what they're getting and what it's going to mean for Amazon as a player in the entertainment industry from this point forward.
Now, the other thing, I just wanted to also let people at home know, the subsidiaries of MGM, AIP, which means that all those blaxploitation films with Pam Grier are a part of this deal. Orion Pictures, United Artists. Dude, I see, this is what I'm saying. I saw this in my business mind. I immediately was like, if you Netflix, you like, uh-oh. Because what Amazon is about to do, if they can close this deal, is they not only, they don't have anywhere close to the product like the content or programming that Netflix does, right? They would have to amp up for several years. They probably still couldn't catch Netflix because Netflix has such a head start in building a library with building programming. But what an MGM acquisition can do is give you some playtime to program, to create your own programming, because you're bringing in 21,000 pieces of property in one deal. Subsidiaries, library, you got a studio, which again, and Wilson, we can have this conversation as long as you want to have it. I honestly believe that streaming long-term is the answer, but there's a certain hierarchy on how the film business runs, and the film business runs by having a studio and having movies in the theater, right? And I think Netflix, as much as I love them and as revolutionary as their model has been, Netflix even understands that there's certain movies when they're trying to get Oscar consideration that they need to put those movies in theaters. And I think you're doing people a disservice of not putting certain films in your catalog on, in theaters. I'm not saying you got to put them all in theaters, but they should have some theatrical runs for some of these films that they're trying to push for Oscars. So if we weren't in a pandemic year, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I think Jingle Jangle in the theaters would have played well. There are certain titles that I think Netflix, they should be looking at honestly about, like every other studio. Most studios roll out, what's a good general number, Wilson? Anywhere between 12 to 24 films a year in theaters?
Like 20 at best.
20.
Okay, so let's say we use 20 as a model, right? If Netflix put 20 of the films that they really wanted to monetize in theaters, yes or no, would it make a difference? Not just from a financial standpoint, because they're already making the money, but I think from a business perspective and a studio perspective, I think it would make a difference.
Well, yeah, like I just heard Legendary Pictures or Warner Bros. Has announced that Dune is going to specifically play only in theaters. After, they made this whole announcement that all of their films are going to play on HBO Max, Legendary Pictures was pissed off because they're like, no. We made our movies for the theaters. Godzilla meant for the theaters. We don't want Dune on HBO Max because you just saw the Angelina Jolie movie flop because we were like, oh, I'm watching on HBO Max as opposed to going to the theaters. No, Legendary's like, nah.
Is that why it flopped?
I'm saying, like, granted, I think it's meant for a small screen, but the point being is like Legendary's put money into Dune, the special effects, the costumes, and all that stuff. Like, we want people to see that on a big screen. Like more recently, you see the talk is that Quiet Place 2 is going to make a gangbuster number next week because Paramount basically was like, we ain't giving out links. You need to go see this in the theaters and spread the word. So like everybody's like, oh, theaters are coming back. And they start spending money on the marketing, saying, hey, these theaters are back. Come out wherever you're at.
Well, like I said, man, I think, man, from a model, again, we've sat at home for 14 months and we watched movies, on streaming services. And as you talked about the HBO Max Warner Brothers deal, I honestly believe that the future of this business is that Netflix, I think this deal will also pull Netflix into the fray, that A, they're going to be looking to acquire some programming of their own, and B, if 20 is a number, let's say between 15 and 20 films a year, you got to put them in the theaters, man. And you got to promote that these movies are in the theaters. And then when they're in the theaters, you always have your home streaming service that they run on that you can leverage. But Netflix, think about it, Wilson. What does Netflix have that in their library that that anybody else is interested in watching and putting on another channel? They can leverage, like how Disney has Black Panther, or Amazon, they're able to close this deal, has James Bond. What legendary property do you have that somebody's going to come to Netflix and go, we want to leverage that program? Do they have anything, Wilson, that you can think of? Any project? Any property?
Maybe Bright, you know?
You see my face like, who's calling Netflix up for Bright? It's no disrespect, but
that was my number one concern with Jingle Jangle, is that this is a film that's exclusively on Netflix.
Yeah.
And
that's the whole point. Like, nobody else could see it.
Nobody else could see it.
There was no DVD.
You know how great a film is. I'm sorry.
You can't collect it. Like, let's not assume that everybody has to think about it. With so many streaming channels that are out there, and we also got to think about how the economy is. At the end of the day, I'm constantly getting people saying, "Oh, I can't, I don't have Netflix, I don't have Stars, I don't have HBO Max." At the end of the day, it's like people are already paying for just regular cable. There's only so much you can do to add, and let's just say, should Amazon acquire it, they're going to spend a fortune for it. They're going to up their monthly rate, for people to start buying it because they know they have the library. And you're like, how often are we going there to see these movies? To see it.
How often are people going to Disney Plus, man? I'm telling you, Disney.
Well, there's a difference between Disney Plus has first run. Disney Plus has episodes. Weekly. Amazon don't have like series like that they're making weekly that people are going to and talking about Monday. Stuff like that. It's like
you see both of us looking at you. Look, they don't have them yet. Watch this. They don't have them yet.
The Handmaid's Tale. The Handmaid's Tale. Is one of those.
Wilson, think about the future, man. Watch this. When Disney Plus bought, not before Disney Plus existed, when Disney Plus bought Marvel and Disney Plus bought Pixar, what Disney did and they knew is that once we own it, we can just kind of monetize it our way. So you had Star Wars come out and we created all these different Star Wars shows. We had Marvel, we created all these Marvel shows. Don't think Amazon's not looking at that. That you
what's
franchise.
I don't want to see a Rocky series.
Watch this. You might not want to see a Rocky series, but I'm saying somebody might.
Listen to this. Fargo, The Handmaid's Tale, The Voice, Survivor. All these are part of MGM, and they will they go right into Amazon, and that's episodic television.
Wilson, you might not want to see it, man, but I'm telling you, this is the future, bro, and it's coming.
Until right now, talk is cheap. So the next time we have it, we're all speculating here and there. It's like, okay, we could. This is like, it's like a wasteful conversation until it's official. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good follow.
No, man, no. I'm just talking about the possibilities, man. Because again,
I think you spent a whole half hour on the possibility.
Yes, I did, because the possibility. Guess who's going to cover this? If it goes through, you would be the first person covering this, looking at the content of what's coming down and letting us know. And I'd be like, we tried to tell Wilson. Wilson said it was just a possibility. We were just going wasteful. I'm like, no, it ain't. This is where we're going. If I would have told you 15 years ago that there would be this studio that would map out like films 10 to 15 years in advance, Disney would buy them, because Disney didn't buy Marvel until around 2000.
You could always have a conversation about what ifs. So like,
okay, well, this is a what if, Wilson, because they're currently negotiating. And my point is that if it goes through, these are the things that I think will come down the pipe, because we've already seen it with other companies like a Disney, a Netflix, and some of the other streaming services. So that's all I'm saying. So if you want to send letters to Wilson Morales, Wilson, where can people read your content? And so I can let people know where they can come for you.
Find me over at Black Film TV, the one and only. Look for it on Twitter as well and on IG and other social media. So like when it comes down, I'll report the facts as they are, and not what could be, what may be, what could have, can be. So, this conversation is like, okay, we know the time we had a what if conversation,
Wow. Well, so this is a man.
Next week, maybe we can go from what if to what is. So
watch this. This is a man who wants to be out in the sun, and we've been holding him from getting out to Central Park for the last hour. So I can understand this animosity and shade.
Like looking at the clock.
Charles,
like, how long can he go with this? It's like keep milking the time. Are we on overtime? What's going on?
We are not on overtime. We're getting close to an hour, man. Charles, tell people where they can read your content, man.
Well, you can read my content at thefilmgordon.com and the DC Film Life on Twitter and Facebook, where I will be talking about Jennifer Hudson, the major push Amazon Studios is putting behind Jennifer Hudson to win an Oscar award for her role in Respect. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, and also before I get out of here, I want to congratulate Wilson Morales, who's a fan of the New York Knicks, who are the 4th seed in the upcoming NBA playoffs. Our team, Charles and I, are the Wizards. We're the 8th seed. So we play our first game this weekend. And I also want to congratulate Wilson Morales because his New York Yankees have seemingly turned it around and are still looking up at the Boston Red Sox, while my beloved New York Mets sit in the #1 slot.
That's
and
okay,
Charles
we had a triple play the other day. We had a no-hitter.
Yeah, that's nice, man. But the Mets are winning with 18 people on the DL right now. So
I'm gonna use the line that they used to say for the Dallas Cowboys: "Same old Mets, like same old Robo."
Wow. and Wilson Morales.
Mets have always been in a situation where they get up in here, but then until you start scoring for the Grom, you're not gonna go far.
Watch this. And Charles Kirkland is a fan of the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington football team. Wilson Morales is a fan of the vaunted New York Jets. So we always have these conversations about sports. Right now, my team's in first place. I don't know I can't speak for Wilson and the Yankees. We're in first. That's all I know.
Tim was always riding the turtle,
Wow.
Actually, now this is
fun team.
Tim has got the rabbit and we're the turtle.
Watch this. Charles. The most fun team in New York is the Mets. The Yankees aren't fun to watch.
Mets is like,
wait. If Wilson is a Yankees fan, he's going to be a fan of this Amazon because that Amazon is just doing what the Yankees do.
Win.
Buy it all up.
Buy it all up and win. That's all basically. So Wilson, I don't know why Wilson is throwing shade on the deal.
I ain't throwing shade.
He's not throwing shade on the deal. He's throwing shade on the possibility.
Because I want some light.
Oh, that's cold. All right, man. Well,
I'm trying to open up these curtains to let in the light.
All right. Well, the show is a wrap. I want to thank you guys for listening. That MGM conversation, despite the fact that Wilson thought it went on too long, I thought it was a good conversation.
Yeah, it's a good conversation.
There were some good points. There were some good points that were made all around. And as I said, we will continue to monitor it. And for me, I'm telling you now, if it goes down and I see it on Black Film and TV, you ain't gonna never hear the end of this. I'm gonna be like,
see that Netflix came out and scooped Amazon, this whole video would have to be deleted.
No, we were just doing the amendment and be like,
you're like
Netflix.
You want a whole half hour about Amazon this, Amazon that, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's like
this is hate. This is hate.
Disney just bought MGM. Like, oh, this whole conversation is like, eh.
All right, well, we will continue to monitor it. And as I tell you guys at the close of every week's show, please see something good at the movies. And you will be going back to the movie theaters pretty soon. We will see you guys next week, man. You guys enjoy. Wilson, Charles, thank you guys for everything. Wilson, go get you some fun in the sun, man. Take care, man.
Bye.